On May 7th, in the streets of Kunming, Yan'an province, a young woman was seen with a cardboard sign hanging around her neck, looking for a job. The sign read, 25 years old, purebred Oxworspo, seeking employment, willing to work the 996 schedule, including alternating weekends. Can arrive at the company for overtime at 3 a.m. Be available 24/7 on standby. Will voluntarily resign and go home after the age of 35, but refuses N+1 severance. Skills include layout, planning, video shooting, and editing, and proficiency in various graphic design software. Expected salary, 300,000, 400,000 RMB. Everyone knows it's getting harder to survive these days, but no one expected it to get this bad. The era of great economic depression has already begun. I just want to find a job that can keep me alive. Their salaries are all too low. Some are low and not even stable. As for accommodation, I'm not saying I have to do a job that earns a lot of money. I just want something a bit easier. As long as I can survive in this place, that's enough. I just want a job to support myself because I feel like I won't be able to work for long anyway. I feel like being in my 20s or 30s is still so young, right? I might die halfway through my working years. Are really so sad. I'm breaking down from searching. Just want a job that can support me, one that's not too exhausting. My husband and I earn more than 10,000 yuan a month. It adds up to at least 30,000 yuan a month. We are not happy. Last year, we suddenly wanted to get married and buy a house. We asked our parents and relatives for help and borrowed 1 million yuan. We bought a house worth 2.8 million yuan before trying to get a loan. We spent 1 million yuan on renovations and 12,700 yuan a month. It would take 20 years. But I didn't expect that the economy would be bad. The company went bankrupt, so it took a long time to buy a house. I am unemployed. We all rely on my husband's salary. When we get the money back, we will have to change the mortgage. But my husband's salary of 15,000 yuan is enough for us to eat porridge every day. We dare not buy clothes, fruits, snacks, or even eat out. We can't even afford to order takeout. Out of my husband, the company was also laying off employees on a large scale. He was so upset that he lost his job. The whole family had no source of income. They had no choice but to buy a house. However, in the current market, the house could not be sold at all. They could only keep lowering the price. Finally, they sold it for 2.3 million. Now, not only did they lose the house, but they also lost the recovery fee and the renovation fee. They also owed the bank a large sum of money. Now we have paid off everything we invested in the house. Apart from working to pay off the loan, we dare not think about anything else. I still haven't paid it back. Obviously, we didn't do anything. Just two people lost their jobs. We became penniless and owed a lot of debt. So I really advise everyone that life has not been easy in the past few years. You must keep some money with you for emergencies.
Guangzhou, China, May 15, 2025. Guangdong's streets seethe with defiance. Factories, once the cornerstone of China's global ascent, stand as silent husks, their gates padlocked. Workers, cast aside like debris, flood the boulevards, their banners a desperate plea. Jobs now, justice now. The U.S.-China trade war, a brutal 7-year siege, has obliterated 1.5 million jobs in this industrial heartland, igniting protests that challenge Beijing's iron rule. This is no ordinary unrest. It's a revolt against a regime that thrives on oppression while its people drown in despair. China teeters on a precipice, a Gini coefficient of 0.53, among the world's highest, signals inequality rivaling pre-revolutionary France. Unemployment, officially 5.1%, likely nears 10%, with youth joblessness at 22%, GDP growth, claimed at 4.8% for 2024, is closer to 4.5%, dragged by a collapsing property sector and weak demand. The Belt and Road Initiative's $1,300 billion zero-cents debt strangles public services. Guangdong's uprising is a clarion call. A system that betrays its citizens courts its own collapse. The trade war's devastation, Guangdong gutted. The U.S.-China trade war, launched in 2018, has ravaged Guangdong's export-driven economy. Tariffs choked markets, slashing China's export growth from 10% in 2017 to 3.6% by 2024, per World Bank data. Factories producing smartphones, textiles, and toys for global giants saw orders evaporate, shipping costs tripled, customs barriers tightened, with 20% of exports rejected at foreign ports in 2024, per a leaked customs report. In Dongguan, dubbed the world's workshop, Shengli Electronics, once employing 6,000, shuttered in January 2025. "They threw us out like trash," says Cheng Wei, a 42-year-old welder, his hands idle after 15 years on the line. "No pay, no notice, just a memo to leave." The toll is staggering. A smuggled Guangdong labor report, verified by exiled economists, estimates 1.5 million manufacturing jobs lost since 2022, up from earlier 1.2 million estimates as closures accelerated. Small businesses, tethered to factory supply chains, collapsed, with 40% of Shenzhen's shops shuttered in 2024, per local commerce records. "My restaurant fed workers," says Li Fang, a 48-year-old owner, now selling her kitchen equipment to pay debts. "No workers, no customers. I'm finished." China's economic model, reliant on low-cost labor and foreign markets, proved brittle. "Beijing bet everything on globalization," says Dr. Li Ming, an economist in Taipei. "It never built a plan B." Unlike Germany, with its diversified economy and robust worker protections, China lacks domestic demand or innovation to pivot. Industrial capacity languishes at 74%, down from 76.6% pre-pandemic, per the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS. Though independent analysts suspect even lower utilization. The trade war exposed a fatal flaw: a nation unprepared for a world that rejects its goods. The ripple effects are profound. In Guangzhou, a plastics factory employing 3,000 closed in March 2025, leaving workers like Sun Tao, a 47-year-old packer, jobless. "I've got 2 daughters," he says, his voice cracking. "How do I feed them?" In Zhongshan, a textile hub, 50% of factories halted production in 2024, per a local industry report. "The machines are rusting," says Wu Mei, a 35-year-old operator. "We're rusting too." A regime's betrayal, workers forsaken. Guangdong's workers sought redress but found abandonment. China's labor laws, riddled with loopholes, offer no shield. The International Labor Organization ranks China's worker protections among the globe's worst, with collective bargaining non-existent and wage theft rampant. At Shengli, laid-off workers like Zhang receive no severance, only a curt notice citing market conditions. Labor bureaus meant to mediate disputes are shuttered. Petitions vanish into bureaucratic voids. "I filed a complaint," says Chen Mei, a 40-year-old seamstress. "The office was locked, no one answered." Protests erupted from this neglect. In December 2024, 500 workers rallied outside a bankrupt Foshan plant, demanding back pay. By day 5, 5,000 joined, their chants defiant: "Pay us what we're owed." The movement spread to Shenzhen, Zhongshan, Guizhou, and Jiangmen, fueled by covert networks dodging state censorship. "We're not criminals," says Wang Yong, a 38-year-old machinist, his face bruised from a police baton. "We're fighting to survive." The regime's response was ruthless. Riot police stormed rallies, firing tear gas and clubbing protesters. In a Shenzhen clash on February 10, 2025, 6,000 were kettled in Civic Square for 16 hours, denied water or restrooms. Smuggled videos show officers beating a teenager, his phone crushed for filming. Over 4,500 have been arrested, with human rights groups reporting black jails where dissenters vanish. They want us broken, says Li Qiang, a protester's brother, speaking via encrypted app. But we're not done. Censorship suffocates truth. The Great Firewall, China's digital barricade, deletes protest posts within minutes. Weibo is scrubbed. VPNs falter under intensified blocks. State media spins a 4.8% GDP boom, ignoring the IMF's 4.5% estimate and independent analyst Gao Shanwen's 2% projection. The regime lies. In Huizhou, a local journalist was detained for reporting on protests. His outlet shuttered overnight. Human toll, lives in ruins. The crisis is a humanitarian disaster. Guangdong's property bubble, once 20% of GDP, collapsed, wiping out 15% of household wealth, per a 2024 IMF report. Over 800,000 families defaulted on mortgages in 2024, per a leaked banking memo. The bank's seizing my apartment, says Zhang Wei, who sold his TV to buy rice. I've got nothing left. Despair drives tragedy. In Huizhou, a worker, Liu Qiang, drank pesticide after losing his job, leaving a note. This system killed me. His widow was detained for speaking out. A 2024 NGO report smuggled to Western media estimates 15,000 suicides tied to economic distress in Guangdong. People are giving up, says a Dongguan priest, speaking anonymously. They see no future. In Jiangshan, a 45-year-old father, Chen Hao, hanged himself after defaulting on a loan, his family evicted from their home. The fallout spares no one. Shopkeepers like Li Fang closed stores, with 60% of Dongwun's retail bankrupt in 2024. Truck drivers hit by fuel costs block highways. Delivery riders earning $1.20 an hour join marches. I ride 14 hours for nothing, says Zhao Lin, a 29-year-old Shenzhen courier. This isn't a life. Even former bosses, bankrupted by lost contracts, protest. My factory's gone, says Wu Hao, a former plastics magnate, now selling his car. The government doesn't care. Families fracture. With parents jobless, 30% of Guangdong's primary students dropped out in 2024, per leaked education records. My son quit school, says Sun Tao. Fees are $500 a year. I can't pay. The elderly, without pensions, skip medical care. My father's diabetic, says Chen Mei. Insulin's $80 a month. We can't afford it. Hospitals demand cash up front, turning away the poor. In Foshan, a grandmother died waiting for surgery, her family unable to pay $2,000. 0 cents. Migrant workers, 40% of Guangdong's labor force, face unique horrors. I came from Hunan for work, says Li Shu, a 32-year-old cleaner now homeless in Shenzhen. Now I sleep under a bridge. Migrant children, denied urban school access due to hukou restrictions, roam streets, with 50,000 out of education in Guangzhou alone, per a 2024 NGO estimate. National decay, a country fractured. Guangdong's crisis mirrors a nation unraveling. China's Gini coefficient, at 0.53, signals extreme inequality, with the top 10% holding 41.7% of income and 67.8% of wealth, per the World Inequality Database. The bottom 50% scrape by with 14.4%. The rich feast while we starve, says Zhao Lin. The Northeast, China's industrial cradle, is a graveyard. State-owned enterprises collapsed, leaving 35% unemployment in Harbin, per a 2024 Peking University study. Factories are rust, says a Shenyang mechanic speaking anonymously. The state forgot us. Empty homes and for sale signs define the region, where 40% of households skip meals to pay rent, per a local survey. In Liaoning, youth migration has left villages with 60% elderly populations, per 2024 census data. Central China's rural expanse is a study in neglect. Despite poverty alleviation claims, 22% of children are malnourished, per UNICEF 2024. Schools lack heat, clinics lack medicine. Over 60 million left behind children raised by grandparents face emotional scars. In Henan, 14-year-old Li Na dropped out to scavenge scrap. My parents are in Shenzhen, she says. I haven't seen them in years. Rural literacy lags at 80%, vs 95% in coastal areas, per UNESCO. The Western provinces, promised riches by the Great Western Development, are a sham. Infrastructure projects enrich elites, leaving locals behind. In Guangzhou, literacy is 78%. Hospitals are shells. My son walks 3 hours to school, says a Qinghai farmer. He'll never escape. In Xinjiang, surveillance stifles dissent, with 1 million Uyghurs detained since 2017, per UN estimates. Economic neglect fuels unrest, though protests are crushed before they begin. Coastal hubs, China's economic engines, falter. Foreign investment fell 8% in 2024 as firms shifted to Vietnam, per World Bank data. Youth unemployment at 22% traps graduates like Xinhua's Chen Jun, now a street vendor. My degree's worthless, he says. The property crisis slashed savings, with 30% of Shanghai families unable to pay rent, per a 2024 survey. In Hangzhou, a tech hub, 25% of startups folded in 2024, per local industry reports, leaving coders like Li Wei jobless. I built apps for millions, he says. Now, I drive a taxi. Youth disillusionment, a generation betrayed. China's youth, once the regime's pride, are its greatest threat. With 22% unemployment, graduates embrace lying flat, a rejection of a rigged system. I studied for nothing, says Chen Jun, whose Tsinghua degree earned him a vending stall. In Guangzhou, 40% of university students expect no job post-graduation, per a 2024 survey. The system lied, says Zhang Li, a 23-year-old engineering major, now a barista. Work hard, get rich? It's a joke. Social media, despite censorship, amplifies discontent. In 2024, 15,000 Weibo posts used "no future," though most were deleted, per a Hong Kong monitor. We're done striving, says Li Wei. Why feed a machine that chews us up? The regime's response, censoring jobless influencers and banning negative content, only fuels rage. A 2024 Pew survey found 70% of urban youth expect major unrest by 2030, a sentiment echoed in Guangdong's protests. Rural-urban divide, migration's toll. China's 280 million migrant workers, the backbone of its cities, face unique horrors. Hukou restrictions bar them from urban schools and hospitals, leaving families split. In Shenzhen, 60,000 migrant children are out of education, per a 2024 NGO estimate. My daughter lives with my mother in Hunan, says Li Shu. I send $50, 0 cents a month. It's not enough. Jobless migrants, like Shenzhen's 10,000 homeless workers, sleep in parks, their dreams shattered. Urban disdain compounds their plight. Locals call us outsiders, says Sun Tao. We built their cities, but they hate us. In Guangzhou, a 2024 crackdown evicted 5,000 migrants from slums, leaving them nowhere to go. The police took my tent, says a Henan laborer. Where do I sleep? Migration, once a path to prosperity, now feels resentment, with 30% of migrants reporting discrimination, per a 2024 survey. Debt crisis, Belt and Roads fallout. The Belt and Road Initiative, a $1.3 trillion 0 cents global gamble, chokes China. Domestic projects, meant to mirror its overseas push, have ballooned local government debt to 117% of GDP by 2023, per IMF data. In Guangdong, empty ports and unfinished rail lines mock promises of growth. They built for show, says Dr. Li. Now we're bankrupt. Land sales, once a fiscal lifeline, collapsed with the property market. A 2024 IMF report warns of $1 trillion, 0 cents in bad loans, threatening banks. Public services, schools, hospitals face cuts. My clinic closed, says a Zhongshan nurse. No funding. Patients die waiting. In Foshan, a hospital turned away 300 patients in a week, citing budget shortages. Local governments barred from direct borrowing, high debt in opaque vehicles, risking fiscal collapse. The property sector, once 20% of GDP, is a black hole. Developers like Evergrande defaulted, dragging down banks and families. My savings were in an apartment that doesn't exist, says Chen Jun, whose developer vanished mid-construction. Nationwide, 35% of housing projects stalled in 2024. Per a leaked Housing Ministry report, the crisis fuels distrust, with 65% of urban residents avoiding property investments, per a 2024 Pew survey. Digital tyranny, a surveillance state. China's rulers weaponize technology. The Great Firewall, backed by 700 million cameras, creates a digital prison. Freedom House's 2024 report ranks China's internet freedom the world's worst, with 92% of content censored. A Guangzhou activist, caught sharing protest videos, was jailed for subversion. His family hasn't seen him since. The social credit system controls lives. Low scores block jobs, travel, education. I can't buy a train ticket, says a Shenzhen protester. Punished for marching. AI algorithms scan texts, flagging dissent. You're always watched, says a Guangzhou coder using Signal. Propaganda rewrites reality, erasing Tiananmen and touting a 5% GDP rise against the IMF's 4.5%. My daughter sings party songs, says a Foshan mother. She's brainwashed. Yet, resistance persists. Smuggled reports, like this article's source, slip through. Encrypted platforms, like Signal, carry whispers of revolt. They can't stop us all, says a Dongguan organizer, hiding behind a VPN. In 2024, 12,000 Weibo users bypassed censors to share protest footage, though most were deleted within hours. Environmental neglect, a hidden crisis. Economic collapse masks environmental decay. Guangdong's factories, once polluting giants, left behind toxic legacies. In Huizhou, 30% of groundwater is contaminated, per a 2024 environmental report, affecting 500,000 residents. Our water's poison, says a local farmer. The government doesn't care. Air quality, though improved, still exceeds WHO limits, with 40% of Guangzhou's children reporting respiratory issues, per a 2024 health study. Rural areas fare worse. In Gansu, desertification displaced 100,000 farmers since 2020, per a state report. My land's dust, says a Qinghai herder. We can't grow anything. Beijing's green pledges, carbon neutrality by 2060. Prioritize optics over action, with coal plants still powering 60% of electricity in 2024, per NBS. Environmental neglect fuels unrest, with 20% of Guangdong's protests citing pollution, per smuggled organizer reports. Policy failures, a systems collapse. Beijing's policies fan the flames. The property sector's collapse drags growth. Local governments, drowning in debt, cut services. Labor markets stagnate, with industrial capacity at 74%. Unemployment, officially 5.1%, is likely 10%, per exiled analysts. Youth joblessness, at 22%, breeds despair. They push AI jobs, says Chen Jun, but who trains us? Social spending is abysmal. China allocates 8% of GDP to welfare versus 20% in OECD nations. Without unemployment benefits or retraining, workers like Zhang Wei are abandoned. They tell us to innovate, he says. With what? I'm broke. Education budgets, slashed in rural areas, leave 35% of Gansu's schools without heat. Healthcare access dropped 15% in 2024 per a leaked ministry report, as hospitals prioritize paying patients. Fiscal mismanagement compounds the crisis. Local governments, reliant on land sales, face deficits as property tanks. A 2024 IMF report warns of systemic risks, with $1 trillion, 0 cents in bad loans, threatening banks. The system's rotten, says Dr. Li. It's built on debt and lies. The breaking point, a people's rage. Guangdong's revolt is China's reckoning. Youth distrust, at 42%, erodes the regime's grip. Inequality, with a Gini of 0.53, fuels rage. Protests, now 7 months strong, swell, with 20,000 marching in Shenzhen on May 10, 2025, per smuggled reports. "We're done begging," says Zhao Lin. "We're fighting." Repression holds, for now. China's 2.5 million police and 10 million informants crush dissent. But hunger is stronger. You can't jail a million starving people, says Dr. Li. Worker coalitions, linking factories, gig workers, and students gain traction. "We're organizing," says a Huizhou activist, voice low. In Foshan, a secret union printed 6,000 flyers calling for strikes, though most were seized. Economic strain could force change. The Belt and Roads, $1 trillion, $300 billion, 0 cents, debt, $1 trillion, 0 cents in bad loans, and a collapsing property sector weakened Beijing's grip. The system's cracking, says Dr. Li. It can't hold forever. A 2024 Pew survey found 70% of urban youth expect major unrest by 2030, a sentiment echoed in Guangdong streets. Guangdong's roar is China's warning. A regime that betrays its people risks collapse. As factories rust and streets blaze, the truth breaks free. This nation, built on the backs of its workers, will not kneel. The cry of "enough" echoes, unyielding, demanding a future stolen by lies.